Hello everybody and welcome to the LP podcast. My guest for today's episode is Prashant Dongre, who is sales and business development professional. Prashant has over 20 years of experience in business development, account management and technical sales in oil refining, petrochemicals and chemicals industries, involving process equipment, technologies and catalysts. Prashant has recently launched his book on business-to-business sales called Sales Freak. In this book, he shares his experience on business-to-business sales to help readers to skyrocket their sales in the next 6 months. And in this episode, he shares some insights of his book, as well as shares some tips on how to increase the sales. Hello, Prashant. Thank you very much for joining for a podcast. I'm looking forward actually to hear lots of valuable information about B2B business. And I've heard you recently published your book. Congratulations with that. Relative to the B2B sales is very niche and very interesting topic. So now I would like to hear more about this.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for inviting me. I think you have started a very good initiative and it's going to be very interesting.
Thank you. So let's speak about your book. Actually, It's not many people writing the books, generally, and especially relative to their such a niche subjects. Okay, we have plenty of their books related to the sales. They have to be great salesperson. But your book is very specific relative to the B2B markets. So actually, what made you to write a 200 pages book about B2B selling?
Well, the thing is this, you're also an engineer. So when we are studying in the engineering curriculum, there is no subject that teaches us on sales. There is no sales subject. And someone like me, for example, when I started my career in 2001, I just joined a company that gave me a job, and it happened to be a sales job. So as I grew in experience, I learned a lot of things myself. And a lot of things actually you learn in a hard way. There's a lot of struggle when you are a salesperson doing things your own way. So I thought that since I have learned so much in my 2 decades of experience, I should write it down so that other people, maybe youngsters or experienced people also, can actually benefit from it. And the second angle that I thought is, these days with social media, LinkedIn and Amazon, it's actually quite easy to spread your word. You don't have to find a publisher. You don't have to, do a lot of stuff. All you need is some content where you write your experiences, and then it's easy to spread the word. So the idea of writing the book is actually to share the experience and help other people, other salespeople in the B2B field, learn from the book and use the ideas that are put into the book. That was the basic premise of writing this book.
Well, that's actually is great to share your experience to some young professionals who can learn basically on your experience, what you came through. But can you please explain what is particular specific about B2B market? Why and what is actually different compared to like general sales?
Let me take an example. Let's say I want to sell my iPhone and you want to buy it. So I'm the seller and you are the buyer. Suppose we agree on a price and you like the quality of the phone. We have a transaction. So there are 2 parties and both are happy the moment transaction is done. Business to business is a little different. In business to business, if I am a salesperson selling to you as a buyer, I work for a company and you also work for a company. So it is not just me and you who need to be satisfied with the transaction, but there are many more people in the background who are also part of the transaction. And that is what makes business to business selling interesting as well as challenging.
So that means there are many more people involved who you need to satisfy their interests. Like, I mean, let's call them stakeholders, which they are, and so it's not only the person. That's why it makes it a bit challenging.
Yes, so there is a full team, and you as a buyer would like to make sure that the product that you are buying, first of all, it will work, and from your team's perspective, your people will look at you as somebody who makes good decisions. From a seller's perspective, I also have a team of my own people who would look at me as someone who sells at good price, for example. So business to business is more than buyer or seller. It's more of a stakeholder management.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, if we talk about B2B market, business to business, selling companies to companies, what are the main challenges actually that salespeople face when they're either entering this market or they are operating already in this market? What are the main challenges and basically maybe key differences for salespeople to operate in these markets?
Actually, the internet has been a great leveler. So today, you as a buyer has all the resources, or let's say most of the resources, to know about a vendor even before the vendor actually meets you. So as a salesperson, this represents a tremendous challenge. And with the advent of technology, the buying is actually becoming more and more data driven. It's easier for you to figure out among different vendors, okay, who is offering what are the benefits, what are the tangible benefits in terms of money. And the biggest challenge salespeople face is this limits the differentiation. Once the buyer is smart enough to put on a piece of paper all the pros and cons of different vendors, all the price benefits or technology benefits they are deriving out of the vendor, the differentiation among the vendors becomes less and less, which means it drives the price down. And that is the biggest challenge today's B2B salespeople face, that they are not able to differentiate their product, their technology, their service from the competitors.
Okay, in this case, I have a follow-up question. If all of the products becoming more, let's call it commoditized, when clients cannot differentiate them, what the companies, in particular salespeople, needs to do to make these products outstanding for the client?
What we talked, these 2 points are actually the challenges, but this is also an opportunity for the salespeople, because the way you differentiate your product is by providing a clear value proposition to the customer. And the thing is, every vendor is going to propose some kind of value proposition. The main task for the salesperson to win a contract or to be a better salesperson is actually to convince the client that their value proposition is the best the customer can have. And this represents a lot of opportunities for salespeople, who can actually find the value proposition in the first place and then present it to the customer in a convincing way.
Okay. If there is any particular rule or any particular one principle in sales that successful salespersons needs to know?
I think it is finding the value proposition and putting it in front of the client in such a way that the customer gets convinced. That is the one single mantra to sell anything in B2B space. And for that, you could have different tactics. For example, you could be a subject matter expert. Mm-hmm. You could learn to ask the right probing questions to the clients. You need to build trust, that your customer trusts you, that if you are saying something will work, it will work. It's a matter of trust rather than just putting it on a piece of paper that, okay, I guarantee that something will work. Also, stakeholder management. So there are various ways in which you can actually figure out what is the value proposition and then learn how to present it to the client. But the bottom line is, if there is one thing that you need to, as a salesperson, you need to learn, it is basically the value proposition. And the book that I have written, this is the fundamental aspect of the book. The whole book revolves around how to find value proposition, how to present it to a client, how to present better than your competitor. This is the crux of the book.
Oh, that's very interesting because, like, as we discussed before, all of their, majority of the services and products are becoming more commoditized. So the value proposition actually becomes one of their, actually not one of the key the key principle or the key action that you need to take in order to win actually this order, to win the sale. And is there any steps or tactics which basically help salespeople to better prepare this value proposition to present for the client presentation?
Actually, there are a few things here. First thing is, if you're talking about a specific problem that you are solving for a client, the first and the foremost task is to understand the problem. A lot of times we want to jump on a solution. So the first thing is to ask ourselves, are we solving the right problem? Once we are convinced that we have identified the right problem, then the question is find the solution. But the more important question is, how are we going to present to the clients? Are we going to make a long presentation? Are we going to make a short one where we highlight, okay, this is the problem as we understand, this is the solution, and these are the monetary aspects of it. These are the benefits that you get. This is the price that you pay. The shorter the version it is, the better it is for the customers to understand, because customers are actually very busy people. They meet many vendors every day. It is almost impossible for them to actually remember the next day what you told them today. So you need to find one or two key things that you need to put into their minds, that if you go with my solution, you save X millions, or you get X amount of boost in your production, or you have better safety, something like that. So that one trigger they should remember every time they think of you as a vendor.
And what basically salesperson, because salesperson is the person who interact with the potential client, with the prospects, and what actually salesperson needs to do to make this presentation remembered for the client outstanding, so the client remember not only remember the person itself, but remember the company, remember the product. What can be leads to make this presentation outstanding?
I think a couple of things I should say. First thing is, if you can tell a story. So let me give an example. Suppose you go to a client and customer says, I have so and so problem. If you know, or your colleagues know that some customer in other country had the same problem and you solved the problem, you got to tell him a story. You got to tell him that, okay, X, Y, Z had a problem. These were one or two difficulties they were facing. And then we solved this problem in so and so way. When you tell that story to client, you are actually building credibility. So the next obvious question from the client is, okay, could we talk to this person whose problem you solved? That's where you are actually selling by references. You are giving a reference has worked. And that way, you can actually build trust overnight with the client. That's the first thing you can do. But suppose if you don't have a reference, or if you don't want to tell a story because it may be confidential when sold, the other solution could be to make a very short business case, like a 2-3, where you clearly tell client that, okay, this is your problem, 1, 2, 3 are the solution, these are the benefits you get. This way they will actually remember, rather than presenting them 20 slides where you tell about your company, your products, many other things. Not many people care about actually your company. What they really care about is, what are you going to do for them today? That's it.
Wow, that's very interesting. But in your book as well, you're mentioning the business plan. What actually sales business plan? What is it about? Can you describe me more about this, please?
Sure. Before I start with business plan, let me say that most companies fail, or let's say many companies fail, not because they have a poor product, but because they have poor sales. So product, because today the manufacturing technology has advanced so much, it's actually hard to produce a poor quality product unless you want to do it on purpose. So once you have made a baseline where you your product is as good as somebody else's product, the only differentiator, or let's say the key differentiator, is actually how you tell your customer about your product. So that's where salesmanship comes into picture. Having understood this, let's focus on business plan.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, business plan is a document which will tell how your company will make money. That's it. In the simplest term, the objective of the business plan is to tell how your company will make money. Now, there are 2-3 aspects in a business plan. First of all, what products are you going to sell that come into the business plan that will make you money? Second is the market or the customers you are targeting. Whether you are targeting, let's say you are making a business plan for the Middle East customer. So you cover all the customers that can potentially buy your product in the Middle East. And third is actions. So business plan basically links your actions, your customers, and your products. As simple as that. Now, there are a few things which I write in my book as well, is how to make a good business plan. In short, the business plan should basically be actionable. It should be growth oriented. And then, since we talk about, being able to understand things faster, it basically should be simple, short, and realistic. That's it. So you don't need very long like essays or 15, 20, 25 pages. It should be crisp, short, sharp, and should tell you where the money is going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, people feel that business plan is management responsibility, and the people at the lower end just have to give them some numbers and they will figure it out. Actually, I disagree with that. Business plan is everybody's responsibility. If you are a salesperson who has been given even one client, it is your responsibility to actually find out in the next 5 years how much this customer is going to buy. What are you going to offer? What actions are you going to take to actually win business from this customer? So it's a very important part of the sales process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's like a sales planning document, say like this. How are you planning to approach the customer and what, like, to satisfy the interest and how much revenue you can bring to the organization.
Correct.
Okay, and but in your book you also talking about the career in sales. And what basically are the main factors which affect the sales career?
Yeah. Before we talk about the factors that affect sales career, I think I'll just take a small diversion. There are 2 ways to grow. One is vertical and second is horizontal. Now, vertical is very obvious. Let's say you were engineer a few years ago, now you are senior engineer. So, of course, you have moved up in the hierarchy. But as I talk in my book about the future of B2B sales, I think there are not going to be many positions that you need to climb in the future. So rather than just planning for a vertical growth, you could also plan for horizontal growth. Take an example. Somebody is working in the sales department. Let's say they spend 4 or 5 years in the same position. They might want to switch the field by going into procurement or maybe technical service. So this way, they are not essentially growing vertically, but they are actually increasing their competence base. And I think it's a bit tough to swallow that you can also grow horizontally without getting bigger titles. In my opinion, you can do that. So this is the first part. Now, talking about sales career, to answer your question, that what factors are actually they decide your sales career. I think the number one factor is, of course, market. That the market in which you operate as a salesperson will decide how much you can succeed. It could be the buyer's philosophy, the way people buy, for example. It could be, sometimes your competitors are too strong. So it doesn't matter how good a salesperson you are. So in many cases, the market will dictate actually that how successful or less successful you will be in the job. But once you leave market, there are many other things which are under a lot of control. So for example, technology. Technology is always changing. And take, for example, Salesforce, the CRM software. Few years ago, everything used to be, manual. That
Excel sheet.
You make an you make an Excel sheet and you find out, okay, I have these many inquiries, and okay, these are the probable prospects which I can win. But today, you don't do that. You don't have to do that actually, because today there is Salesforce or there is SAP, for example, which can tell you, okay, 2 years down the line, how the production planning looks like. So to a large extent, actually technology impacts your sales career, and in the longer run, it will have more and more impact on your sales career. Then there comes the company that your employer, for example, the company you work for, and the boss you work for. So is your company a type where it's giving you equal opportunities? Is your boss somebody who is actually trusting you, giving you responsibilities? How is the delegation culture in the company? So these are other factors which again are not all in your control, but they have a tremendous impact on your career. And the last one is the family, because when you are in sales, you travel. It doesn't matter whether you're responsible for a small country, big countries, or you are at a higher level where you travel across the globe. So the combination of market, the company you work for, your family, and the technology will dictate how good or not so good you will do in your career.
Wow, so many factors actually affecting.
So many factors, yes. And in my book, I describe them in details for people to link, where they stand, what are the things they could tweak, for example.
So, and also in your book, you are describing how to overcome, for example, the challenges, so that people can go, for example, after they listen our podcast, they can maybe go and to learn something, basically how they can overcome these challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And so we talked about how to be like the salesperson, but at a certain point in the salesperson, you will grow. And basically, on one moment, you become a leader. And what
Yes.
are your thoughts about sales leadership?
That's a good question. Well, there are two ways, sometimes you grow in a company where you are an engineer, over a period of time, you get a leadership position. The single biggest challenge, in my view, when you reach that level is your temptation to do everything that you were doing before. Because what made you successful in your earlier job, you think that the same thing will help you succeed in the leadership position.
Yeah.
This is the single biggest challenge. So it takes some time for the leader to realize that he or she needs to stop doing certain things. And that's why they have subordinates under them who will actually help them do the daily work. Once that is sorted out, then comes the main part that you need to ask yourself as a leader. Suppose you leave the company today, what kind of legacy are you going to leave behind? What your colleagues will talk about you? And I think there are three angles from which the legacy question can be tackled, and I discuss in my book this in quite depth, but I will just touch base upon each of them. Of course, the number one is you have to increase your numbers. So if you are the head of sales, director of sales, for example, your main task is to bring more business. That is actually very much understood. Everyone expects you to do that. The second part here is how you improve the processes in your company. So, for example, every company has a bureaucracy. There is certain way of doing certain things. So now that you have a leadership position, you also have certain kind of power or authority in you, and you can do a better change management. The question is, what kind of processes, first of all, you identify are not optimal? And second question is, what are you going to do about it? Your people will remember you for what you change. And the last one is influencing culture, because once you are in leadership position at a senior position, you have a direct, let's say, impact on the culture you want to inculcate in your company. So if you want to see from the legacy perspective, you need to think about how you want to increase the numbers, what kind of processes you want to improve in your company, and then how will you influence the culture. And the book talks in depth each of them, how to do it, and what are the factors you need to consider.
Yeah, so people can take a right decision whether they're ready to take a sales leadership role. Actually,
yes. Yes.
or not. And you spoke about technology and as it's changing over time. How actually B2B sales has changed from the past to now, and what actually, from your point of view, going to be B2B sales of the future?
The single biggest difference from the past to now is the easily available information. So the buyer, the technical buyer, the commercial buyer have 90% of the information about a vendor even before seeing the vendor. But that is as of today. Looking forward, and this is just my guess, and which I have written in the book at length, the number one thing that will happen is artificial intelligence, AI. So today, for example, we have Salesforce, where you put an opportunity in Salesforce, and suppose something is coming up the next 2 years, you just put it there. You get a reminder after a certain time that okay, you need to follow the opportunity. But I think this is a very small part of AI that we are seeing today. As we move forward, there will be a lot of data-driven thinking and decision making. So you as a salesperson will have to focus more and more on adding value. There will be no need to make a lot of manual work that we do today. Everything will be automated. So that is one single factor which I see the B2B sales will head into, which is the use of AI and the use of value-based selling. The other few things is today, typically people have a single career. You could change the companies, but you still have similar career and similar, let's say, product mix. Going forward, I see that people could have multiple careers because the technology disruption will be so huge that in the field that you work today, maybe it doesn't exist in 10 years. So then people will have to move complete career from one field to the other field. Similarly, there will be very few hierarchies. So today, for example, you have engineer, senior engineer, deputy manager, and then blah blah blah. In the longer run, there will be actually very few hierarchies. There will be leadership block and the actual people who work. That's it. I don't see any other way the hierarchy can move. And the last thing that, and which I have also talked in the book, is finding purpose. 100 years ago, when the industrial revolution started, the world was a very different place. People used to work for money. Poverty was everywhere. The life expectancy was lower. But today, we live in a much more technologically advanced times. So the overall standard of living has actually risen for everybody across the world. So going forward, the salespeople will also have to find some purpose in what they do and why they do it. It could be, they want to serve a client, for example. It could be they want to, get a lot of technical know-how and use that to make society a better place. Something like that. It will definitely not be money. So these are a few things I see that in the future, things will be very different than they are today.
But since you mentioned artificial intelligence, there is also discussions going on like now in the internet and different social media regarding Amazonization of procurement. Basically, when you can have something e-commerce like Amazon, so buyers can go there, click the products they need, and just buy everything they need. So, how do you think that basically this Amazonization of procurement and development of artificial intelligence can actually influence their sales professionals? I mean, I don't know, their characteristic or their career or the role of salesperson.
Actually, Ludmila, you yourself are a buyer, and you know that your main task is to commoditize as much as you can. I mean, on a piece of paper, your goal is to show that all bidders are technically equal. Once you do that, it's a matter of choosing the lowest one in most cases. So as technology gets better and better and the decision making becomes more objective, this will actually even become more easier for the buyers. And that's where the challenge for salespeople will lie. That how do they make, because once you have made a table showing everything is equal technically, then what remains is actually price, payment terms, and delivery. That's all. and trust that, okay, you trust a vendor. But if you find that you trust all the vendors equally, then it's really a price game. There's nothing much left.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, this will be a bigger and bigger problem, that what things you see cool today, you see something, is a technology, becomes commonplace, or what they call open art in the future, or in the very near future, like in 10 years. So if you are a salesperson who actually sells a product today, which is highly technologically oriented, and we suddenly find 10 years down the line, it's very commonplace, anybody can make it, then you have actually a tough challenge. And I think there are a few ways you can do it. First thing is, of course, your company has to innovate to make sure that you reach the next level of innovation. But after a while, if you see that everything is reached to the limit, then you also have to make a decision as a salesperson. Is it the right field for you? Will you sustain in this field for longer, or is it time to do something else? And as the AI gets better and better, the decisions get more and more objective. We'll see people switching fields quite often, because a lot of fields will actually become commoditized.
Mm-hmm.
You could buy certain things on Amazon today, you could buy many more things tomorrow actually. So it's a scary scenario, but I think it's going to happen.
Okay, in this point, since we touched the scary scenario of the future, what would be your message that you can share, your personal message, which you can share with salespeople?
And there are 3-4 points. There are 3-4 points I will mention. I think giving one message is quite hard, I should say, but 3-4 points I would mention. And first remains valid forever. That is, put customers first. It has been valid 20 years ago. It's valid today. It will be valid forever. That you need to put your customers first. So it's not that what I want to sell you. Actually, it's that what you want to buy is I need to understand first. And it's only when I understand your problem, what you want to buy, how you want to buy, then I need to build my value proposition. So the second point is basically make a habit of asking questions to customers, open questions. And it doesn't, there are no stupid questions actually. You need to be a little more open-minded and ask customers, okay, dear customer, tell me how you evaluate this tender, for example, that you have asked me to send you a tender, send you a quotation. How do you evaluate it? So these kind of questions will help you build a value proposition. So putting customer first, building a value proposition. Third thing I will say is one needs to think big, but realistically big. So take an example, there is all these things like positive thinking. A lot of things you see that, everybody should think positively. Experience has taught me that in sales, things are not always great. Just like you win some contracts, you also lose a lot of other contracts. And if you were to tell yourself that, you should be positive, I think you will be disappointed. I think what matters here is to understand, okay, what is your strength, where you are good at, which customers or which tenders you think you can win, and then putting your energy and being positive about it. For the rest, you need to decide what are your chances actually. Just by being positive is not going to help you, become better salesperson or win more business. And the last point is upskill yourself. So as I talk in the book that there will be so much disruption in terms of technology, the way B2B sales works, you need to upskill yourself from time to time, whether it's learning new technologies, new products, new markets, or skills. Maybe it's communication skill, productivity skills, time management, many things. So we have actually gotten over the era where, you graduated, you learned something, and it stayed with you for your entire career and you retired. Those days are over and they are not coming back. I think we are here for a ride. So these are the 4 messages I would like to, give it to the future salespersons or the people who want to become better salespersons.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I actually agree a lot with all of these messages, especially that you always need to upskill yourself, because we are living in a fast changing world when everything is changing so fast The technology disrupting everything. There is developing that artificial intelligence, changing actually people. Some jobs are becoming completely redundant, and that's why if we will not constantly upskill our knowledge, upskill ourselves, we can be easily left behind and just be not suitable for these markets anymore. This is great. Great points. Great points. So thank you very much, Prashant. It was very interesting discussion and lots of learnings out of it. Thank you very much for sharing of your experience and knowledge with me and the audience. And I wish you all the success, all the best for marketing your book. It was a great piece of knowledge share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting. Thanks.
That was all about B2B sales. I hope you enjoyed and stay updated for the next episode.